Paul Mcgrath here this morning. Now, speaking of Campout Hurstville, I'm glad to say I've got in the studio with me from Campout Hurstville, Bruce Boler. G'day, Bruce.
Good morning, Paul. How are you today?
I am excellent. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
All right, now, what I wanted to do is just find out a bit more about this. I mean, camping out has become quite popular, hasn't it, as a leisure pursuit?
Yeah, very popular with the Australian public, particularly a lot of new Australians as well. People who are new to the country, I'm finding, are becoming just as comfortable with camping out as what many traditional Australian folks would be.
In fact, going back to my youth, when I was the young fella, we had a holiday place down in Bundeena. And at Simpsons Beach, I think it is, or Bonnievale. And we used to walk through the big camping area. And my gosh, the tents. And in those days, there was a real strong smell of canvas, especially if it had been raining or something like that. Especially if it was really wet, it was pretty average for those poor people. But it's different today, isn't it?
Oh, so much difference, particularly in one of our camper trailers. You can be so comfortable. Nice queen-size bed, lovely big kitchen, lovely awning around. You can be as comfortable as all get out. It's just lovely. And you can get out into the outdoors and do it in style.
Absolutely. Now, I must admit, especially my wife, but me too, I guess, to a lesser extent, I'm more of a five-star hotel kind of person. But
oh, gee, you poor thing.
Yeah. but the facilities these days for a lot of that type of stuff. You even go to a lot of the caravan parks where you probably even put your camping trailers and so on. The facilities today are just fantastic.
Fantastic. Some of them are almost like theme parks.
Well, they're almost five-star, aren't they?
They are indeed. You can get ensuite sites as well, so that if you are a five-star kind of guy such as yourself, Paul, that you can...
I can't afford it, let me tell you.
Well, you just pitch your tent or your camper trailer in our case right next door to the facilities, and it's right there. Your shower toilet's right there. So you can go five-star camping, and particularly in one of our camper trailers.
Tell me, are there any nice, I guess, hidden secret kind of places where people locally, I mean, I know you and I were speaking yesterday about a friend of mine who has a camper trailer business up in Brisbane, and people typically from there go to Fraser Island, which is a fairly short trip for them from Brisbane, and I'm sure you've got customers that go to Fraser Island as well from Sydney. But locally, is there some really nice local places where people can go?
Well, local to Sydney is always a little bit of a challenge because the city sprawl, of course, is pushing out further and further into those places that used to be a secret, but now they're not. But you don't have to travel so terribly far. In and around the Blue Mountains, there's some lovely spots. I know some great places up around Capertee, which is just a little bit further to drive than the Blue Mountains. Headed north and south, there's some gems, absolute gems. You have to go a little bit further out to find the true secrets, I think, but some lovely spots.
Like, for example, down the South Coast. I think South Coast is a real hidden secret, and people tend to go north as opposed to south. But you get down to, like Mollymook, even a little bit further south, like Borley Point, places like that. Can you take these kinds of things? You don't have to go into caravan parks or camping parks or anything like that. If you can find a spot where you can stick it away you go, is that how it works?
Well, they're quite self-sufficient. I mean, a lot of people do prefer to go into caravan parks because, of the facilities, etc. But no, you don't need to do that at all. A lot of my off-road trailers don't ever see a caravan park or anything like that. They just see local properties and, the open road and pulling up near the open road, not beside it, wouldn't be such a good idea. But that's pretty common for a lot of my customers.
Typically, how long does a person have a breakaway for with a camping kind of holiday?
Well, look, typically if you're going to a caravan park or something like that, it's around about a week or so usually. Let's face it, you don't unwind from the grind of the day-to-day job unless you're away for about a week. And let me tell you, some of my customers really need that unwind. So a week is fairly typical for that. But folks, for instance, this time of year, folks do head west into the great Outback. It's cooler now and there's less flies, and so that's typically 2 to 3 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to go that far, you've got to make
a lot of driving, and you don't want to put too much driving in there on a per day basis. You really want to have some fun in there.
Yeah, exactly, because otherwise it kind of becomes a chore, doesn't it? I mean, I must admit, I'm, again, besides being a five-star kind of person, I'm not really big on driving really, really long distances, like, Mollymook, Borley Point. That's about as far as I want to travel in a day.
And that's far enough. You don't have to go those long distances. I mean, if there's something you particularly want to see and it's a long way away, well, you're going to have to drive it, I suppose. But you don't have to drive those long distances. And one of the big advices I give to my customers is don't try and pack too much into any given day.
Yeah, and you can say that for any kind of holiday, can't you? Whether it's an overseas holiday or whatever, just make a holiday, don't make a chore of it.
Otherwise you see a lot of road and not much else.
Exactly. Bruce, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
It's really, really interesting, and as I say, I mean, I think it is a good way of being able to have a holiday, especially if you want to, people travel overseas and things like that, but they don't see enough of their own country. And I guess this kind of way of being able to, go camper trailers and so on is a great way of being able to see your own country.
It is, yeah.
Good stuff. Good on you, Bruce.
Thank you very much for having me aboard, Paul.
Thanks for coming. That's Bruce Boler from Campout Hurstville, one of our station sponsors. Really interesting, isn't it? I thought I'd just find out a bit more about what's happening there with camping.